Chapter 10, Leo. Smart call back there, Percy said, choosing the air condition. He and Leo had searched the museum. Now they were sitting on a bridge that spanned the Cladios River, their feet dangling over the water as they waited for Frank and Hazel to finish scouting the ruins. To their left, the Olympic Valley shimmered in the afternoon heat. To their right, the visitors' lot were crammed with tour buses. Good thing Argo, too, was more than 100 feet in the air, because they never would have found parking. Leo skipped a stone across the river. He wished Hazel and Frank would get back. He felt awkward hanging out with Percy. For one thing, he wasn't sure what kind of small talk to make that with the guy who recently come back from Tartarus. Catch that last episode of Doctor Who. Oh, right. You're trudging through the pit of internal damnation. Percy had been intimidating enough before, summoning hurricanes, dueling pirates, killing giants in the Colosseum. Now, well, after what happened in Tartarus, it seemed like Percy had graduated to a totally different level of butt kickery. Leo had trouble even thinking of him as part of the same camp. The two of them had never been at Camp Half-Blood at the same time. Percy's leather necklace had 4 beads for 4 complete summers. Leo's leather necklace had exactly none. The only thing they had in common was Calypso. And every time Leo thought about that, he wanted to punch Percy in the face. Leo kept thinking he should bring it up just to clear the air, but the timing never seemed right. And as the days went by, the subject got harder and harder to broach. What? Percy asked. Leo said, What? You're staring at me like angry. Was I? Leo tried to muster a joke, or at least smile, but he couldn't. Sorry. Sorry. Percy gazed at the river. I suppose we need to talk. He opened his hand and the stone Leo had skipped flew out of the stream, right into Percy's palm. Oh, Leo thought, we're showing off now? He considered shooting a column of fire at the nearest tour bus and blowing up the gas tank, but he decided that might be a tad dramatic. Maybe we should talk, but not... Guys! Frank stood at the far end of the parking lot, waving at them to come over. Next to him, Hazel sat astride her horse, Arian, who had appeared unannounced as soon as they landed. Saved by Zan, Leo thought. He and Percy jogged over to meet their friends. This place is huge, Frank reported. The ruins stretch from the river to the base of that mountain over there, about half a kilometre. How far is that in regular measurements? Percy asked. Frank rolled his eyes. That is a regular measurement. In Canada and the rest of the world, only you Americans. About 5 or 6 football fields. Hazel interceded, feeding Aaron a big chunk of gold. Percy spread his hands. That's all you needed to say. Anyway, Frank continued. From overhead, I didn't see anything suspicious. Neither did I. Hazel said. Aaron took me on a complete loop around the perimeter. A lot of tourists, but no crazy goddess. The big stallion nickered and tossed his head, his neck muscles rippling under his butterscotch coat. Man, your horse can cuss. Percy shook his head. He didn't think much of Olympia. For once, Leo agreed with the horse. He didn't like the idea of tromping through the fields full of ruins under a blazing sun, shoving his way through hordes of sweaty tourists while searching for a split-personality victory goddess. Besides, Frank had already flown over the whole valley as an eagle. If his sharp eyes hadn't seen anything, maybe there was nothing to see. On the other hand, Leo's tool belt pockets were full of dangerous toys. He would hate to go home without blowing anything up. So blunder around together, he said, and let trouble find us. It's always worked before." They poked out for a while, avoiding tall groups and ducking from one patch of shade to the next. Not for the first time, Leo was struck by how similar Greece was to his home state of Texas. The low hills, the scrubby trees, the drone of cicadas, and the oppressive summer heat. Switch out the ancient columns and ruined temples for cows and barbed wire, and Leo would have felt right at home. Frank found a tourist pamphlet. Seriously, that dude would read the ingredients on a soup can and gave them a running commentary on what was what. "This is a propylon." He waved towards a stone pattern lined with crumbling columns, one of the main gates into the Olympic Valley. "Rubble," Leo said. And over there Frank pointed to a square fountain. They looked like a pack of Mexican restaurants. Is the Temple of Hera. One of those oldest structures here." "More rubble," Leo said. "And that round stand looking like that's the Philippian, dedicated to Philip of Macedonia." "Even more rubble. First state rubble." Hazel, who was still riding Erin, kicked Leo in the arm. "Doesn't anything impress you?" Leo glanced up. Her curly golden brown hair and gold eye matches her helmet and sword so well she might have been engineered from imperial gold. Leo doubted Hazel would consider that a compliment. But as far as humans went, Hazel was first-rate craftsmanship. Leo remembered their trip together through the house of Hades. Hazel had led him through the creepy maze of illusions. She'd made the sorceress Fastife disappear through an imaginary hole in the floor. She'd battled the giant Slitius, while Leo choked in the giant's cloud of darkness. She'd cut the chains binding the doors of death. Meanwhile, Leo had done, well, pretty much nothing. He was infatuated with Hazel anymore. His heart was far away on the island of Ogygia. Still, Hazel Levesque impressed him, even when she wasn't sitting atop a scary immortal supersonic horse who cussed like a sailor. He didn't say any of this, but Hazel must have picked up on his thoughts. She looked away, flustered. Happily oblivious, Frank continued his guided tour. "And over there, he glanced at Percy. That semicircle depression on the hill, which in Americas, that's Nymphoeum, built in Roman times." Percy's face turned the colour of limeade. "Here's an idea. Let's not go there." Leo had heard all about his near-death experience in the Nymphoeum in Rome with Jason and Piper. "I love that idea." They kept walking. Once in a while, Leo's hands drifted to his tool belt. Ever since the Kirkopes had stolen it in Bologna, he was scared he might get belt-jacked again. Though he doubted any more monster was as good at thievery as those dwarfs. He wondered how the little crud monkeys were doing in New York. He hoped they were still having fun, harassing Romans, stealing lots of shiny zippers, and causing legionnaires' trousers to fall down. "This is the Pelopian," Frank said, pointing to another fascinating pile of stones. "Come on, Zang," Leo said. "Pelopian isn't even a word. What was it, a sacred spot for plopping?" Frank looked offended. It's the burial site of Pelops. This whole part of Greece, the Peloponnese, was named after him. Leo resisted the urge to throw a grenade in Frank's face. "I suppose I should know who Pelops was. He was a prince, won his wife in a chariot race. Supposedly he'd started the Olympic Games in honor of that." Hazel sniffled. "How romantic. Nice wife you had, Prince Pelops." "Thanks, I won her a nice chariot race." He didn't see how any of this was helping them find the victory goddess. At the moment, the only victory he wanted was to vanquish an ice cold drink and maybe some nachos. Still, the further they got into the ruins, the more uneasy he felt. He flashed back to one of his earliest memories, his babysitter, Taya Caladia, a.k.a. Hera, encouraging him to prod a poisonous snake with a stick when he was 4 years old. To prod a poisonous snake with a stick when he was 4 years old. The psycho goddess told him he was good training for being a hero, and maybe she'd been right. These days, Leo spent most of his time poking around until he found trouble. He scanned the crowd of tourists, wondering if they were regular mortals or monsters in disguise. Like those Eidolons who chased them in Rome. Every so often he thought he saw a familiar face. His buddy cousin Raphael, his mean third-grade teacher Miss Borquin, his obsessive foster mum Teresa, all kinds of people who had treated Leo like a dirt. Probably he just imagined their faces. But it made him edgy. He remembered how the goddess Nemesis had appeared as his Aunt Rosa, the person Leo most recently and wanted to revenge on. He wondered if Nemesis was around here somewhere, watching to see what Leo would do. He still wasn't sure. He paid his debt to that goddess. He suspected she wanted more suffering from him. Maybe today was the day. They stopped at some wide steps leading to another ruined building, the Temple of Jesus. According to Frank, it used to be a huge golden and ivory statue of Jesus inside. Zhang said, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, made by the same dude who did the Astronoparthenos. Please tell me we don't have to find it, Percy said. I've had enough huge magic statues for one trip. Agreed. Hazel patted Arian's flank as the stallion was acting skittish. Leo felt like whining and stomping his hooves too. He was hot and agitated and hungry. He felt like they'd prodded the poisonous snake about as much as they could, and the snake was about to strike back. He wanted to call it a day and return to the ship before that happened. Unfortunately, when Frank mentioned Temple of Jesus and statue, Leo's brain had made a connection against his better judgment. He shared it. Hey, Percy, he said. Remember that statue of Nike in the museum? That one that was all in pieces? Yeah. Didn't you used to stand here in the temple at the Temple of Jesus? Feel free to tell me I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Percy's hand went to his pocket. He slipped out his pen, riptide. You're right, so if Nike was anywhere, this would be a good spot. Frank scanned their surroundings. I don't see anything. What if we promoted like Adidas shoes? What if we promoted Adidas shoes? Percy wondered. Maybe that would make Nike mad enough to show up. Leo smiled nervously. Maybe he and Percy did share something else. A stupid sense of humour. Yeah, I bet that would totally be against a sponsorship deal. Those are not the official shoes of the Olympics. You'll die now. Hazel rolled her eyes. You're both impossible. Behind Leo, a thunderous voice shook the ruins. You will die now. Leo almost jumped out of his tool belt. He turned and mentally kicked himself. He just had to invoke Adidas, the goddess of brand shoes. Towering over him in the golden chariot was a spear aimed at his heart. Was the goddess Nike. Chapter 11. Leo. The gold rings were overkill. Leo could dig the chariot and the 2 white horses. He was okay with Nike's glittering silver sleeveless dress. Calypso totally rocked that style, but that wasn't relevant, and Nike piled up braids of dark hair circled with a gilded laurel wreath. Her expression was wide-eyed and a little crazy, like she didn't bother Leo. He could even deal with the gold-tipped spear pointed at his chest, but those wings, they were polished gold, right down to the last feather. Leo could admire the intricate workmanship. But it was too much, too bright, too flashy. If her wings had been solar panels, Nike would have produced enough energy to power Miami. "Lady," he said, "could you fold your flappers, please? You're giving me a sunburn." "What?" Nike's head jerked towards him like startled chickens. "Oh, my brilliant plumage. Very well. I suppose you can't die in glory if you're blinded and burned." She tucked in her wings. The temperature dropped to a normal 120 degrees summer afternoon. "What?" Leo glanced at his friends. Frank stood very still, seizing up the goddess. His backpack hadn't yet morphed into a bow and quivered, but which was probably prudent. He couldn't have been too freaked out because he'd avoided turning into a giant goldfish. Hazel was having trouble with Arian, the roan stallion, nickered and bucked, avoiding eye contact with the white horses pulling Nike's chariot. As for Percy, he held his magic ballpoint pen, like he was trying to decide whether to bust out some sword moves or autograph Nike's chariot. As for Percy, he held his chariot. Nobody stepped forward to talk. Leo kind of missed having Piper and Olympus with them. They were good at the whole talking thing. He decided someone had better say something before they all died in glory. "So," he pointed his index finger at Nike, "I didn't get the briefing, and I'm pretty sure the information wasn't covered in Frank's pamphlet. Could you tell me what's going on here?" Nike's wide-eyed stare unnerved him. What Leo's nose on fire? Was Leo's nose on fire? That happened sometimes when he got stressed. We must have victory!" the goddess shrieked. "The contest must be decided. You have come here determined the winner, yes?" Frank cleared his throat. "Are you Nike or Victoria?" "Ah!" The goddess clutched the side of her head. Her horses reared, causing Arian to do the same. The goddess shuddered and split into 2 separate images, which reminded Leo ridiculously of when he used to lie on the floor in his apartment as a kid and play with his coiled doorstop on the skirting board. He would pull it back and let it fly, springing. The stopper would shudder back and fall so fast it looked like it was splitting into 2 separate coils. That's what Nike looked like. A divine doorstop splitting into 2. On the left was the first version, glittery sleeveless dress, dark hair, circled with dark head, circled with dark head, and circled with laws. Golden wings folded behind her. On the right was a different version, dressed for war in a Roman breastplate and greaves, short auburn hair peeked out from the rim of the tall helmet. Her wings were feathery white. Her dress purple, and the shaft of her spear was fixed with a plate-sized Roman insignia. A golden spore in a laurel wreath. I am Nike!" cried the image on the left. "I am Victoria!" cried the one on the right. For the first time, Leo understood the old saying. His abuelo used to use talking out of the side of your mouth. This goddess was literally saying 2 different things at once. She kept shuddering and splitting, making Leo dizzy. He was tempted to get out his sword and adjust the eye and get out and adjust the idol on her carburetor, because that much vibration would make her engine fly apart. I am the decider of victory, Nike screamed. Once I stood here at the corner of Zeus's temple, venerated by all. I oversaw the games of Olympia, offered from every city-state, were piled at my feet. Games are irrelevant, yelled Victoria. I am the goddess of success in battle. Roman generals worshipped me. Augustus himself erected my altar in the Senate House. Ah! Both voices screamed in agony. We must decide. We must have victory. Owen bucked so violently that Hazel had to slide off his back to avoid getting thrown. Before she could calm him down, the horse disappeared, leaving a vapor trail through the ruins. Nike, Hazel stepped forward slowly. You're confused, like all the gods. The Greek and Romans are on the verge of war. It's causing you two aspects to clash. I know that, the goddess shook her spear, the tip rubber banding into 2 points. I cannot abide unresolved conflict. Who is stronger? Who is the winner? Lady, nobody's the winner, Leo said. If that war happens, everybody loses. Nico looked shocked. No winner? Leo was pretty sure his nose must be on fire. There was always a winner. One winner. Everyone else is the loser. Otherwise, victory is meaningless. I suppose you want to give me certificates to all the contestants. Little plastic trophies to every single athlete or soldier for participating. Should we all line up and shake hands and tell participation? Should we all line up and shake hands and tell each other? Good game? No. Victory must be real. It must be earned. That means it must be rare and difficult against steep odds. And defeat must be the other possibility. The goddess's 2 horses nipped at each other as if getting into the spirit. Okay, Leo said. I can tell you've got strong feelings about that. But the real war is against Gaia. He's right, Hazel said. Nike, you were Zeus's charioteer in the last war with the giants, weren't you? Of course. Then you know Gaia is the real enemy. We need your help to defeat her. The war isn't between the Greek and the Romans. Victory roared. The Greek must perish! Victory? Victory or death! Victory or death! Nag wailed. Once I must prevail! Frank grunted. I get enough of this from my dad screaming in my head. Victoria glared down at him. A child of Mars, are you? A praetor of Rome? No true Roman would spare the Greeks. I cannot abide to split and confuse. I cannot think straight. Kill them! Win! Not happening, Frank said, though Leo noticed Zhang's right eye was twitching. Leo was struggling too. Frank was sending off waves of tension, setting his nerves on fire. He felt like he was crouched at the starting line, waiting for someone to yell, Go! He had the irrational desire to wrap his hands around Frank's neck, which was stupid, since his hands weren't even fit around Frank's neck. Look, Miss Victory. Percy tried for a smile. We don't want to interrupt your crazy time. Maybe you can just finish this conversation with yourself, and we'll be back later with some bigger weapons and possibly some sedatives. The goddess brandished her spear. You will determine the matter once and for all. Today, now, you will decide the victor. 4 of you, excellent. We will have teams, perhaps. Maybe girls versus boys. Hazel said, no. Shirts versus skins. Definitely no, said Hazel. Greeks versus Romans, Knight cried. Yes, of course. 2 and 2, the last demigod standing wins. The other will die gloriously. The competitive urge pulsed through Leo's body. It took all of his effort not to reach the tool belt and grab a mallet and whop Hazel and Frank upside their heads. He realized how right Annabeth had been not to send anyone whose parents had natural rivalries. If Jason were here, he and Percy would probably already be on the ground, bashing each other's brains out. He forced his fist to unclench. Look, lady, we're not going to go all Hunger Games on each other. It isn't going to happen. But you will win. A fabulous honour. Knight reached into a basket and his eye produced a wreath of thick green laurels. This crown of leaves should be yours. You can wear it on your head. Think of the glory. Leo's right, Frank said. His eyes were fixed on the wreath. His expression was a little too greedy for Leo's taste. We don't fight each other. We fight the giants. You help us. You should help us. Very well. The goddess raised the laurel wreath in one hand and her spear in the other. Percy and Leo exchanged looks. Does that mean you'll join us, Percy asked? You'll help us fight the giants? That'll be part of the prize, Knight said. Whoever wins, I'll consider you an ally. We will fight the giants together, and I will bestow victory upon you. But there can only be one winner. The others must be defeated, killed, destroyed utterly. So what will it be, demigods? Will you succeed your quest, or will you cling to your namby-pamby ideas of friendship, and everybody wins participation award? Percy uncapped his pen. Riptide grew into a celestial bronze sword. Leo was worried he might turn on them. Mike's aura was that hard to resist. Instead, Percy pointed his blade at Nike. What if we fight you instead? Ha! Nike's eyes gleamed. If you refuse to fight each other, you shall be persuaded. Nike spread her golden wings. Four metal feathers fluttered down, two on either side of the chariot. The feathers twirled like gymnastics, growing larger, sprouting out of the legs until they touched the ground. As four metallic human-sized replicas of the goddesses, each armed with a golden spear and a celestial bronze laurel wreath that looked suspiciously like a barbed wire frisbee. To the stadium, the goddess cries. You have 5 minutes to prepare, then blood shall be spilled. He was about to say, what if we refuse to go into the stadium? He got his answer before asking the question. Run, Mike blowed. To the stadium with you, or my Nikki will kill you where you stand. The metal ladies unhinged their jaws and blasted out a sound like a Super Bowl crowd mixed with feedback. They shook their spears and charged the demigods. It wasn't Leo's finest moment. Panic seized him and he took off. His only comfort was that his friends did too, and they weren't the cowardly type. The 4 metal ruins swept behind them in a loose semicircle, herding them to the northeast. All the tourists had vanished. Perhaps they'd fled to the air-conditioned comfort of the museum, or maybe Nike had somehow forced them to leave. The demigods ran, tripping over stones, leaping over crumbled walls, dodging around columns and in formation placards. Behind them, Nike's chariot wheels rumbled and her horses whined. Every time Leo thought about slowing down, the metal ladies screamed again. What had Nike called them? Nikki? Nickets? Filling Leo with terror. He hated being filled with terror. It was embarrassing. There! Frank sprinted towards a kind of trench between 2 earthen walls with a stone archway above. It reminded Leo of those tunnels that football teams run through when they enter the field. That's the entrance to the old Olympic Stadium. It's called the Crypt. Not a good name. Not a good name, Leo yelled. Why are we going there? Percy asked. If that's where she wants us. The Nickets screamed again. And all rational thoughts abandoned Leo. He ran for the tunnel. When they reached the ark, Hazel yelled, "Hold it!" They stumbled to a stop. Percy doubted over, wheezing. Leo had noticed that Percy seemed to get winded more easily these days, probably because of that nasty acid air he'd been forced to breathe into Taurus. Frank peered back the way they'd come. "I don't see them anymore. They disappeared." "Did they give up?" Percy asked hopefully. Leo scanned the ruins. "Nah, they just headed us where they wanted us." "What were those things anyway?" "The Nickets? I mean Nickets," Frank scratched his head. "I think it was Nikkei, plural, like victories." "Yes," Hazel looked like in a deep thought, running her hands along the stone archway. "In some legends, Nike had an army of little victories. You could send all over the world to do her bidding. Like Santa's elves," Percy said, "except evil and metal and really loud." Hazel pressed her fingers against the arch, as if taking its pulse. Beyond the narrow tunnel, the earthen walls opened into a long field with gently risen slopes on either side, like seating for spectators. I guessed it would have been an open-air stadium back in the day, big enough for a discus-throwing javelin, catching naked shot put, or whatever else those crazy Greeks used to do to win a bunch of leaves. "Ghosts lingered in this place," Hazel murmured. "A lot of pain is embedded in these stones." "Please tell me you have a plan." Leo said. "Preferably one that doesn't involve embedding my pain in those stones." Hazel's eyes were stormy and distant, the way they'd been in the house of Hades, like she was peering into a different layer of reality. "This was the player's entrance," Nike said. "Nike said we have 5 minutes to prepare. Then she'll expect her to pass under this archway and begin the games. We won't be allowed to leave the field until 3 of us are dead." Percy leaned on his sword. "I'm pretty sure death matches weren't an Olympic sport." "Well, they are today," Hazel warned, "but I might be able to give us an edge. When we pass through, I could raise some obstacles on the field, hiding places to buy us some time." Frank frowned. "You mean like on the fields of Mars? Trenches, tunnels, like that kind of thing? You can do that with the mist." "I think so," Hazel said. "Nike would probably like to see an obstacle course. I can play her expectations against her, but it will be more than that. I can use any subterranean gateway, even this ark, to access the labyrinth. I can raise part of the labyrinth to the surface." Whoa. Percy made a time-out sign. "The labyrinth is bad. We discussed this." "Hazel, he's right," Leo remembered. Leo remembered all too well how she'd led him through the illusionary maze in the house of Hades. They'd almost died about every 6 feet. "I mean, I know you're good at magic, but we've already got 4 screaming Nickets to worry about." "You'll have to trust me," she said. We only got a couple of minutes now. When we pass through the ark, I can at least manipulate the playing field to our advantage." Percy exhaled through his nose. "Twice now I've been forced to fight in stadiums. Once in Rome, and before that in the labyrinth. I hate playing games for people's amusement." We all do, Hazel said. "But we have to put Nike off guard. We'll pretend to fight until we can neutralize those Nickets. Ugh, that awful name. Then we can subdue Nike like Juno. Like Juno said. They so subdue Nike like Juno said. Like Juno said. Like Juno said. Makes sense, Frank agreed. You felt how powerful Nike was trying to put all the Greeks and Romans to all the Greeks and Romans. There's no way we'll be able to prevent a war. We've got to get her under control. And then how do we do that? Percy asked. Bonk her on the head and stuff her in a sack. Leo's mental gears started to turn. Actually, he said, you're not far off. Uncle Leo bought some toys for all you good Leo demigods. For all you good little demigods. So we're going to have enough time for one more chapter. Chapter 12, Leo. 2 minutes wasn't even nearly enough time. Leo hoped he'd given everybody the right gadgets and adequately explained what all the buttons did. Otherwise, things would get ugly. He was lecturing Frank and Percy on Archimedean mechanics. Hazel stared at the stone archway and muttered under her breath. Nothing seemed to change in the big grassy field beyond. But Leo was sure Hazel had some mysterious tricks up her sleeve. He was just explaining to Frank how to avoid getting decapitated by his own Archimedes when the sound of trumpets echoed through the stadium. Nike's chariot appeared on the field. Knickets arrayed in front of her with their spears and laws ready. "Begin!" the goddess bellowed. Percy and Leo sprinted through the archway. Immediately the field shimmered and became a maze of brick walls and trenches. They ducked between the nearest wall and ran to the left. Back at the archway, Frank yelled, Die, crazy scum! A poorly aimed arrow sailed over Leo's head. More vicious! Nike yelled. Kill it like you mean it! Leo glanced at Percy. Ready? Percy hefted a bronze grenade. I hope you labelled these right, he yelled. Die, Romans! And lobbed the grenade over the wall. Boom! Leo couldn't see the explosion, but the smell of buttery popcorn filled the air. Oh no! Hazel yelled. Popcorn, a fatal weakness! Frank shot another arrow over their heads. Leo and Percy scrambled to the left, ducking through a maze of walls that seemed to shift and turn on their own. Leo could still see open sky above him, but claustrophobia started to set in, making it hard for him to breathe. Somewhere behind them, Nike yelled, Try harder! That popcorn was not fatal! From the rumble of her chariot wheels, Leo guessed she was circling the pyramid toward the field. Victory taken, a victory lap. Another grenade exploded over Percy's and Leo's head. They dived into a trench, and the green starburst of Greek fire singed Leo's hair. Fortunately, Frank had aimed high enough that the blast only looked impressive. Better! Knight called out. Where's your aim? Don't you want this circlet of leaves? I wish the river was closer, Percy muttered. I want to drown her. Be patient, water boy. Don't call me water boy. Leo pointed across the field. The walls have shifted, revealing one of the Knickets, about 30 yards away, standing with her back to them. Hazel must be doing her thing, manipulating the maze to isolate their targets. I distract, Leo said. You attack, ready? Percy nodded. Go. He dashed to the left as Leo pulled a ball-peen hammer from his tool belt and yelled, Hey, bronze butt! Nicket turned as Leo threw his hammer, clanged harmlessly off the metal lady's chest. She must have been annoyed. She marched towards him, raising her barbed wire laurel wreath. Oops! Leo ducked as a metal socket spun over his head. The wreath hit a wall behind him, punching a hole straight through the bricks, then arced backwards through the air like a boomerang as the Knickets raised their hands to catch it. Percy emerged from the trench behind her and slashed with riptide, cutting the Knicket in half at the waist. The metal wreath shot past him and embedded in the marble column. Foul! The victory goddess cried. The wall shifted and Leo saw her bounding towards them in the chariot. You don't attack the Nikki unless you wish to die! A trench appeared in the goddess's path, causing her horses to balk. Leo and Percy ran for cover out of the corner of his eye, maybe 50 feet away. Leo saw Frank the grizzly bear jump from the top of the wall and flash another Nicorette. 2 bronze butts down, 2 more to go. No! Nike screamed in outrage. No, your lives are at forfeit! Nikki! Attack! Leo and Percy leaped behind a wall. They lay there for a second trying to catch their breath. Leo had trouble getting his bearings, but he guessed that was part of Hazel's plan. She was causing the terrain to shift around them, opening new trenches, changing the slope of the land, throwing up new walls and columns. With luck, she would make it harder for the Nickets to find them. Travelling just 20 feet behind 20 feet might take them several minutes. So Leo hated being disoriented. It reminded him of helplessness in the house of Hades. Helplessness in the house of Hades. The way Slide Ears had smothered him in the darkness, snuffing out his fire, possessing his voice. It reminded him of Chiron, plucking him off the deck of Argo-2 with a gust of wind and shooting him halfway across the Mediterranean. It was bad enough being scrawny and weak. If Leo couldn't control his own senses, his own voice, his own body, that didn't leave him much to rely on. Hey, Percy said. If we don't make it out of this... Shut up, man, we're going to make it. If we don't, I want you to know I feel bad about Calypso. I failed her. Leo stared at him, dumbfounded. You know about me and... The Argo-2 is a small ship. Percy grimaced. Word got around. When I was in Tartarus, I was reminded that I hadn't followed through on my promise to Calypso. I asked the gods to free her, and then I just assumed they would, with me getting amnesia and getting sent to Camp Jupiter and all. I didn't think about Calypso much after that. I'm not making excuses. I should have made sure the gods kept their promise. Anyway, I'm glad you found her. You promised to find a way back to her. I just wanted to say, if we do survive this, I can do anything to help you keep. That's a promise I will keep. Leo was speechless. Here they were, hiding behind a wall in the middle of a magical war zone, with grenades and grizzly bears and bronze-butt Nickets to worry about. And Percy pulls this on. Man, what is your problem? Leo grumbled. Percy blinked. So I guess we're not cool? Of course we're not cool. You're as bad as Jason. I'm trying to send you for all your perfect hero-y and whatnot. Then you go and act like there's some stand-up guy. How am I supposed to hate you if you apologize and promise to help and stuff? A smile tugged at the corner of Percy's mouth. Sorry about that. The ground rumbled as another grenade exploded, sending spirals of whipped cream in the sky. That's Hazel's signal, Leo said. They've taken down another Nicket. Percy peeked out of the corner of the wood. Until this moment, Leo hadn't realized how much he resented Percy. The dude had always intimidated him. Knowing Calypso, he had a crush on Percy. Had made the feeling 10 times worse. But now a knot of anger in his gut started to unravel. Leo just couldn't dislike the guy. Percy seemed sincere about being sorry and wanting to help. Besides, Leo finally had confirmation that Percy Jackson was out of the picture with Calypso. The air was cleared, and all Leo had to do was find his way back to Ogygia, and he would, assuming he survived the next 10 days. One Nicket left, Percy said. I wonder. Somewhere close by, Hazel cried out in pain. Instantly, Leo was on his feet. Dude, wait! Percy called out, but Leo plunged through the maze. His heart pounded. The walls fell away on either side. Leo found himself on an open stretch of field. Frank stood at the far end of the stadium shooting flaming arrows, and like Chariot, as the goddess below, insulted, tried to find a path to him across the shifting network of trenches. Hazel was closer, maybe 60 feet away. The fourth Nicket had already obviously sneaked up on her. Hazel was limping away from her attacker, her jeans ripped, her left leg bleeding. She parried the metal lady's spear with her huge cavalry sword, but she was about to be overpowered. All around her, the mist flickered like a dying strobe light. She was losing control of the magic maze. I'll help her, Percy said. You stick to the plan. Get Nike's chariot. But the plan was to eliminate all 4 Nickets first. So change the plan and stick to it. That doesn't even make sense. But go! Help her! Percy rushed to Hazel's defense. Leo darted towards Nike, yelling, "Hey, I want a participation award!" Gah! The goddess pulled the reins and turned her chariot in his direction. "I will destroy you!" "Good!" Leo yelled. "Losing is way better than winning." "What?" Nike drew her mighty spear, but her aim was off with the rocking of the chariot. Her weapon skittered into the grass. Suddenly a new one appeared in her hands. She urged her horses to a full gallop. The trenches disappeared, leaving an open field. Perfects were running down, small Latino demigods. "Hey!" Frank yelled from across the stadium. "I want a participation award too! Everybody wins!" He shot a well-aimed arrow that landed in the back of Nike's chariot and began to burn. Nike ignored it. His eyes were fixed on Leo. "Percy?" Leo's voice sounded like a hamster squeak. From his toolbox, he fished out an academic sphere and sent the concentric circles to arm the device. Percy was still sparring with the last metal lady. Leo couldn't wait. He threw his spear in the chariot's path. It hit the ground and burrowed in, but he needed Percy to spring the trap. If Nike said any threat, she apparently didn't think much of it. She kept charging at Leo. The chariot was 20 feet away, 20 feet from the grenade. 15 feet. "Percy!" Leo yelled. "Operating water balloon!" Unfortunately, Percy was a little bit busy getting smacked around. The Nikki thumped him backwards with the butt of her spear. She threw her wreath with such a force it knocked Percy's sword from his grip. Percy stumbled. The metallic lady moved in for the kill. Leo howled. He knew the distance was too far. He knew that if he didn't jump out of the way, now Nike would run him over. But that didn't matter. His friend was about to be skewered. He thrust out his hand and shot a wild hot bolt of fire straight at the Nikki. It literally melted her face. The Nikki staggered. Her spear still raised. Before she could regain her balance, Hazel thrust her spather and impaled the metal lady through the chest. The Nikki crashed into the grass. Percy turned towards the Victory Goddess's chariot, just as those huge white horses were about to turn Leo into a roadkill. The carriage passed over Leo's sunken grenade, which exploded in a high-pressure gesture. Water blasted upward, flipping the chariot, horses, carriage, and goddess and all. Back in Houston, Leo used to live with his mum in an apartment right off the Gulf Freeway. He heard car crashes at least once a week, but this sound was worse. Celestial bronze crumbling, wood splintering, stallions screaming, and a goddess wailing in two distinct voices, both of them very surprised. Hazel collapsed. Percy caught her. Frank ran towards them from across the field. Leo was on his own as the goddess Nike disentangled herself from the wreckage and rose to face him. Her braided hairdo now resembled a stepped-on cow pat. A laurel wreath was stuck around her left ankle. Her horses got to their hooves and galloped away in panic, dragging the soaked, half-burning wreckage of the chariot behind them. "You!" Nike glared at Leo, her eyes hotter and brighter than her metal wings. "You dare!" Leo didn't feel very courageous, but he forced a smile. "I know, right? I'm awesome. Do I win a leaf hat now?" "You will die!" The goddess raised her spear. Hold that thought. Leo dug around his tool belt. "You haven't seen my best trick yet. I have a weapon guaranteed to win any contest." Nike hesitated. "What weapon? What do you mean?" Nike hesitated. "My ultimate Zap-O-Matic!" He pulled out a second academic sphere, the one he'd spent on a whole 30 seconds modifying before they entered the stadium. "How many laurel wreaths have you got? Because I'm going to win them all!" He fiddled with the dials, hoping he'd done his calculations right. Leo had got better at making spheres, but they still weren't completely reliable. More like 20% reliable. It would have been nice to have Calipiso's help weaving the celestial bronze filaments. She was an ace at weaving. Or Annabeth. She was no slouch, but Leo had done his best, rewiring the spear to carry out two completely different. Behold! You clicked the final dial. The spear opened. One side elongated into a gun handle. The other side unfolded into a miniature radar dish made of celestial bronze mirrors. Nike frowned. What is that supposed to be? An Augustus death ray, Leo said. I finally perfected it. Now give me all those prizes. Those things don't work, Nike yelled. They proved it on television. Besides, I'm an immortal goddess. You can't destroy me. Watch closely, Leo said. Are you watching? Nike could have zapped him into a grease spot or spared him like a cheese wedge, but her curiosity got the best of her. She stared straight into the dish as Leo flipped the switch. Leo knew to look away. Even so, the blazing beam of light left him seeing the spots. Gah! The goddess staggered. She dropped her spear and clutched her eyes. I'm blind! Leo hit another button on his death ray. It collapsed back into his spear and began to hum. Leo counted silently to 3, then tossed the spear at the goddess's feet. Boom! Metal filaments shot upward, wrapping Nike in a bronze net. She wailed, falling sideways, and as the net constricted, forcing her two forms, Greek and Roman, into a quivering out-of-focus world. Trickery! Her doubled voices buzzed like a muffled alarm clocks. Your death ray did not even kill me. I don't need to kill you, Leo said. I vanquished you just fine. I will simply change form, she cried. I will rip apart your silly net. I will destroy you. Yeah, see? You can't. Leo hoped he was right. That's high quality celestial bronze netting, and I am a son of Hephaestus. He's a kind of expert on catching goddesses in next. No! Leo left her, thrashing and cursing, and went to check on his friends. Percy looked all right, just sore and bruised. Frank had propped Hazel up and was feeding her ambrosia. The cut on her leg had stopped bleeding, though her jeans were pretty much ruined. I'm okay, she said. Just too much magic. You were awesome, Leverskew. Leo did his best. Hazel imitation. Popcorn, our fatal weakness. He smiled wanly. Together, the 4 of them walked over to Nike, who was still writhing and flapping her wings in the net like a golden chicken. What do we do with her? Percy asked. Take her aboard the Argo too, Leo said. Chuck her in one of the horse stalls. Hazel's eyes widened. You're going to keep the goddess of victory in the stable. Why not? Once we sort things out between Greeks and Romans, the gods should go back to their normal selves. Then we can free her and she can, grant us victory. Grant you victory? The goddess cried. Never! You will suffer for this outrage. Your blood shall be spilled. One of you 4, is fated to die battling Gaia. Leo's intestines tied themselves into a slip knot. How do you know that? I can foresee victories, Nike yelled. You will have no success without death. Release me and fight each other. It is better you die here than face what is to come. Hazel stuck the point of her spatter under Nike's chin. Explain? Her voice was harder than Leo had ever heard. Which of us will die? How do we stop it? Ah, child of Pluto, your magic helped you cheat in this contest, but you cannot cheat destiny. One of you will die. One of you must die. No, Hazel insisted. There's another way. There's always another path. Kate taught you this, Nike laughed. You would hope for the physician's cure, perhaps, but that is impossible too. Much stands in your way. The poison of Pylos, the chained god's heartbeat in Sparta, the curse of Delos. No, you cannot cheat death. Frank knelt. He gathered up the net under Nike's chin and raised her face to his. What are you talking about? How do we find this cure? I will not help you, Nike growled. I will not curse you with my power, net or no. She began to mutter in ancient Greek. Frank looked up, scowling. Can she really cast magic through this neck? Heck if I know. Frank let go of the goddess. He took one of his shoes, peeled off his sock, and stuffed it in the goddess's mouth. Dude, Percy said, that is disgusting. Nike complained. Leo, Frank said grimly. You got duct taped. You got duct tape. Never leave home without it. He fished a roll from his tool belt, and in no time Frank had wrapped it around Nico's head, securing the gag in his mouth. Well, it's not a laurel wreath, Frank said, but it's a new kind of victory circle. The gag of duct tape. Zang, Leo said, you got style. Nike thrashed and grunted until Percy nuggled her with his toe. Hey, shut up! You behave. We'll get Arian back here and let him nibble your wings. He loves gold. Nike shrieked once, then became still and quiet. So, Hazel sounded a little nervous. We have one tied-up goddess. Now what? Frank folded his arms. We go looking for this Physicurean cure, whatever that is, because personally, I like cheating death. Leo grinned. Poison in Pylos, a chained god's heartbeat in Sparta, a curse in Delos. Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. Well, that's the end of our reading with you today of 2 chapters. Bye everyone, and thank you for listening to this.